Hey folks, Rich Burdas, today's Christchurch, New Zealand, with part 3 of the pipeline tracker in PowerApps, how to build your own one, and learn heaps along the way. So today what we're going to do is, in this part 3, is we're going to learn how to do a pop-up, to create a form that will pop up. We can add the information, have a mandatory field button so that it won't be active until we've selected all the required fields, and then show you how to hide that pop-up, and then how that will update the SharePoint data source in the background, and then refresh your app. So super easy to do if you know all the tricks, and hopefully you'll get all the tricks from this session. So let's kick off. So first up, let's go back to the app you've been building. Hopefully it looks like this if you followed part 1 and part 2. I'll put links to those two sections in the description of this post as well, so if you get stuck, follow along in there. And the first thing we want to do is talk about pop-ups. So pop-ups are just in PowerApps are just items that we have a visibility setting set to true or to false based on a context variable. So best place to put the context variable will be on the Add New button. So select that. And what I've done, I've started to group my items on the left to clear things up. So I've got my top nav, which includes all of these little labels, and my button. So open the on select area. We want to put in context variable, so it's update context, then the two normal brackets, squiggly bracket, and then this is the name of the context variable, con new form. So con for context, and then new form, and then we're going to make that true, and that will be used by the pop-up to know when to show itself and when not to show itself. Cool. So that's all we do for that. Just whack it in there, and then it's not going to do anything to start off with because you haven't associated with any of the other controls in this app. And then we want to start building pop-up, right? So pop-ups will always live at the very top of your app. So if you think about these are all the layers you've got in your app, your pop-up's always going to be at the front. If you create one and then add new things into your app, make sure you go back to your pop-up and move it to the top using the home, bring to front. And the pop-up is just basically built up around a white box background and then a form with some other labels and things on it, and that's all it is. Just all grouped together, all running off the same variable to show itself or to hide itself. So let's build that now. So go insert, drop under icons, because you want to drop in a shape. I would just put a big white square wherever you want it, and don't put it over the button because then might make it harder for you to see, but somewhere like that. And I'm going to make this one white, and also remembering our little technique, I want to keep it white. And I'm going to add a second shape as well to give myself a bit of a header. I could control paste all this as well, but I should have put a border on that right there so I could see where it is, but that'll do. So I can use the snap to guide. So that's my little header, and let's put a border on this guy. Just so you want to put a border in the shape, just drop over onto the border side, and then go solid, and then make sure it's got a color. Pick the same theme color. Right, there we go. So we've got a thing, and what we're going to do here. Obviously, if I pop up and I don't want it, I want to be able to close it off. So let's put in a way to hide the pop-up. So again, insert icon, and then pick any one you want, but most people will go with the cancel. Whack that up in the top right. That's kind of where things tend to live, and make it white. All right. And then on that button, while we've got it there, let's just copy the update context variable from the Add New button. Copy that. Click on your little icon just put in there. Grab the on select property of that icon, and then paste in the update context, and then rather than having it true, make it false. Alright, so that's our close button. Right. So if I show you how this is working anyway, if I group that, and that, if I group them all together, so home, group, and then let's rename it to keep my mate Paul happy, GRP, Let's call it Popup. You call it whatever you want, but that helps me know what it is. Okay, so we've got this group item, and then let's make it so it's conditionally showing itself or not showing itself. So select the whole group, and then you can either jump into visible here or visible from the drop down of items. And then we want to make that visibility rather than true or false. We want to make it the name of the context variable that we've been creating. So con new form. And so as soon as you do it, it will disappear because there's nothing. We haven't pushed this button yet, so it is empty. All right. So then let's play it, and you should be able to see your button popping up, or sorry, your pop-up popping up. And if you click over on your little X there, it'll disappear again. So that's the basic building block of your pop-up. All right. Cool. And then if you drop out of play mode and you want to leave it on the screen, hold down the Alt key on the keyboard, push the Add New button again, and then you've got it back up, and then you've got your light in there to do. So next thing we're going to do is add the form that we want to use to capture the data for the end users. So we're going to go to Insert, and then we're going to select Form, and then cleverly, PowerApps doesn't have a new form. It just said Edit and Display. That's one on the backlog, I'm sure, to change. But then grab your form, drag it in, and then put it where you want it to be. Probably make it a little bit shorter than what you need, because you want to drop a button down in here, and you don't want the form to get in the way of the button for this. And then while you've got your form selected, change the default mode to from Edit to New. If you leave it in Edit, the form won't show up. Nothing's going to show up. And then we also want to change our data source to our BD pipeline SharePoint data source that we've selected. So do that, and it will magically add the form fields that you may want to add. It'll add all of them. I don't want to add all of them, so I can either go into Edit Fields, so Fields, Edit Fields, and I get my list of items, and I can click on the ellipsis and remove the ones that I don't want. And then we're going to keep client, we're going to keep chased, we're going to keep the amount, keep like the start date, keep the category, and then I'm going to hide that one. Don't need that one for this. And I'm going to hide amount left, because we're imagining this is a new form, so it's kind of like, well, we've just created something. Let's pop it in, and then we'll remove. Actually, well, we'll leave that guy on. And I'll set a default value of that, even though it's in the form but hidden. Okay, and then make your within the form. So you can start with a 3 if you want, 3 columns wide. I like to go with a 2 for my pop-up, so it lays out a little bit neater. And then what we can do is change some of these fields. So I've already got it's picked up the same US date for the fields, so I want to change them straight away, like we did in part 1. So go over your date, click on Format, and it's dd/mm/yy. Right, let's get that into my date locale. But if you're doing this and you're based in America, you'll be all fine. So don't worry about this step. Cool, that's done. And then a little tip for I put my SharePoint fields in with no spaces, and the form will pick them up with no spaces. So if we want to change that, make them spaces, so I have a space so it looks a bit neater. So click under Advanced. So click on the whole card for the form field, click on Advanced, and then unlock it. It's okay to unlock stuff, just don't delete everything that's in it once you've unlocked it. But once you've got the card selected, you can just jump into Display Name property, and then put spaces into the field, and it works for you. And we'll do that for job status as well. Show that again, unlock it, change that to job space status. All right, and then rather than title, we're going to change the name of that. So same thing, click on it, advanced, unlock, change the display name from title to client. And you've got that held in there, right? Okay, so that's our form starting to take shape. It will, we haven't associated this form, because if you see over on the left, it's not in the group. So it doesn't have any of the context variable popping up showing like hidden conditional visibility. So if I do close my pop-up, the form will still stay there. So just remember that. We're going to still need to associate it. And let's also put a button in for submit. Let's drag that in. That looks fine. And then jump back onto the text of the button and just let's do create item, or you could call it whatever you want. Submit, it's fine. And that's sort of setting it up like I want. I could probably make this pop-up a little smaller actually. That would be a bit neater. Looks more like a proper pop-up. Alright, so let's whack that and the form. Oops, click away. Sometimes if you select things you don't quite catch it because that button is inside of the form. So grab the form first, hold down hold down shift, grab that. Oh, come on. Or go to the right and left hand side and then hold down shift, select them both. Okay, and then select the group and then home group. So when we do this, we're going to need to remember to rename the group and reassociate things. So often when you're building these items, you want to try and build as much of it as possible before you kind of group it all together and name it. But let's do that. So it does reset the group. It'd be cool if there was a little, just add that to the existing group, drag it into the group. Wouldn't that be cool? Let's rename that. Maybe that already exists and I just don't know about it yet. Pop up. So rename it back to what you want and then check what its visibility status is. It's probably got nothing in there. Alright, so let's make that new form again. Right. So then you've got your form. It's not going to do anything yet because the button isn't associated with submit, but we should be able to click add and then have our button show and hide based on what we've got. Right, so that's our form. Okay, hope you're all still with me. Now let's conditionally make this item so you can't submit it unless you filled out all the fields, right? Or category, amount, client, and then likely start date as mandatory fields in this form. So let's do that. Okay, so for that we want to click our button and we want to select display mode, and it's rather than edit we want to put a condition on that display mode. So click on it and then drag that down a little bit. And probably a prerequisite before you do that is to understand the names you've got for these fields, which is always a good reason to change the name. So let's change them first, and then it'll be a lot easier for us to know what fields you actually want to select. So within here, change the name from data card value 1 to a good naming convention is TXT for text field. If it's an LBL for label, when it's just static, but TXT means you're going to put something in it. So let's make that text client. And then rename amount, TXT amount. And it's drop down, right? So, or combo. So let's make it, we'll just go DD category because I'm only allowing single selection, so it's not really a combo. Even though it's coming from SharePoint, so that it always specifies it as a combo to start off with, but let's make that DD category. And then date, oops, date chased. And let's just make this date start date because my fingers get tired if I keep typing the whole words. And then another drop down DD status. Alright, so there we've got fields, we know the names of them now, right? So they'll start to show up over on the left. So we've got things on there. So we can go back to our create item button and then we can click on display mode and then we can see up in the top here what we want to do for the condition. So rather than having it just as display mode edit, just click in front of it, keep that up there if you want to see it. And then good practice, do a little note there. Or or something that you want just to basically help. So it's an if statement, so it's a condition if, and then this one's just cool with the button. We don't really need to worry about the button, but we need to worry about the fields. And so the way we can check for a blank field, we're not checking like if it actually is a real client name, but we're just checking is the field blank or not. So the first up, we want to do if, and then another function is called is blank. So if you type ISB and then you'll see is blank, and then tab your keyboard and you'll get is blank, and then you just drop in the name of the fields that you want to check. So text client, so they'll start to show up. So if that's blank, then a space, and then I want to check more than one field, but I don't want to check if they're all blank. If they're and I want to do an or statement. So an or is a double pipe, or you can write or. So double pipe on your keyboard sits above the enter keyboard on a New Zealand keyboard, and the US keyboard. So above your enter button, hold down shift, and it's just before the backslashy. So that one. So we do another is blank, and then the next field we want to check for is amount. Oops. Get that. So those two, either of those blank, and then let's do. Oops, is blank again. So you can pick up the theme here. It's pretty easy. Date. Oops. Underscore. Start date. Like I want to keep that one. And I want to have a category one as well. So my final one to check. So another double pipe, and then is blank. Oops, whoa. If only I could look and type at the same time. There we go. Blank. DD. Category. Great. So what we're doing, if any of those are blank, then do something. So it's a comma at the end. So what do we do if any of those are true? So if any of those are blank, so we make display mode dot disabled. All right, and another comma. So if they're all got values in them, then we roll into the final else statement, and I can just put an end bracket on that. And let's format that by clicking the format to make it look prettier. So basically, any of those four fields are blank, then disable the button or make it true. So we see in our form already that it is already accepting what we changed. So let's just put in some test data, find an item, pick a date. That's the chase date, so we don't have to worry about that one. And then by clicking this one, click OK, the button becomes available. All right, so that's that. How you make your form work. And then on create item on the button here, what we want to do is now submit it to SharePoint, right? So I want to send the information through, and that's just on the onSelect statement. Now this form is form 1 at the moment, so we know it's form 1. So let's remember the name of form 1, and then with the button selected, up into your formula drop down, find onSelect, and then we're going to change that from false to submit form. Submit form is really easy. So in SharePoint, you don't have to worry about any of the field types. It'll submit the whole form, send it through with all the values, default values that you may have set in SharePoint will get picked up if you send a blank field through. It's a really easy way to submit fields for like complex field types in SharePoint, like lookups and people. Those things are really good. They're a bit harder to do in the patch, which we'll do next in the next session, but this is basically showing how to submit the form. So it is submit form, and then open bracket, and then we've only got one form on here. It would list all the forms we knew, so it's form 1. And then we want to do other stuff as well, right? So we want to reset this form, we want to hide the pop-up, and I also want to update my data source, right? So 4 little steps in here. So submit the form, and then we're going to update context, and then we're going to change the new form. We're going to hide it. So update context, con new form, we'll set that to false, and then so close out the context variable, squiggly, then a close bracket, another semicolon. Next thing we're going to do is then I'm going to gather all of my BD pipeline information. So I'm going to click collect my pipeline. So this is the thing we do on start. It's just going to I'm updating my remote data source, and I want to show the change immediately in my local collection. So update or clear collect my pipeline is the name of our collection, and then we go select the remote data source, which is BD pipeline. And then if you've been following along on the first session, you'd know what that means, so that's cool. If you haven't, go watch it, it'll help. So clear collect that. Oh, I've got a little red thing in there. That's one because I've got a squiggly in there. Don't need that. Sorry about that. Don't put a squiggly in. So it should be looking like that. And then let's reset the form. Cool. So basically, PowerApps can retain information you might have put into the form if you've been messing with it. If it's a new form, generally on an edit form it won't, but on a new, it often can keep the name of the client, and you don't want to show that unless you've got a business need to retain it. But let's just reset form 1, and that's it. All right. So what should happen here is if we go to our data source, and if I bring up, let's do what we can do in SharePoint now is let's add a column, show hide column. Sorry, oops, sorry. Show hide column. Let's get ID and let's drag that up. If you didn't know that you could do that in SharePoint, then do that. All right, and then just the views automatically saved. Now that wasn't saving before, and let's change the column settings. Let's go larger to smaller, because then I know we should have a 54 get created right off this. So it's just a way to check that it's come through, because this is listed alphabetical, and I'll make the client like aardvark or something so it shows up. So let's test it, make sure that's going through. So big company up in the Midwest apparently. Let's grab everything. Let's make it active pipeline. Let's click create item. So amount is $11. It's huge, big job. Push create. Let's see if this works. So that's submitting. It's gone through. My data source will be updating, and then things will be happening. So let's check first of all that we've got it. So Aardvark Holdings has come in. Not worried about my category ID or that yet, but Aardvark Holdings has been created. And then let's see where it is in the list on my app. All right, so I thought I had this listed alphabetical, but this is just a data source. So if I scroll down to the bottom, then we should see Aardvark Holdings has been created. So let's maybe change the list to make it alphabetical. So let's just check what's going on with that. So my view, we are sorting by columns. We are, okay, so we're sorting by category ID and then by title. So let's just check that. Click show all. Go to pipeline. Scroll down, wait for it to refresh. Oh, it's still there. I don't know why that one's not showing up, but let's figure that out. Okay, so I figured it out. What happens in my data source is I've got another column called category ID, which I wasn't submitting. I was just submitting it blank from my form, and that was coming through empty. So that's why it was showing at the bottom. We'll fix that up within this tutorial as well. So 1 second. All right. So to fix that up. So what you can do with a form, this is quite a good way to show how this works as well. So hold Alt down, go add new, click into the form to get the form selected, and let's add fields. Okay. So let's just drop in a new one, and let's grab in the category ID field. All right. So, and what we'll do, because I can submit the form and I can have this as a hidden field, so grab it, grab the value, change the default value. So what we'll do, this one just as an example, unlock it. Sorry, unlock the tile, the card. Sorry. Go into category ID, and rather than the parent.default being the value, let's change that so that we can add some different text based on the category selected above. So just an example of how you could have one form field associated with something else, dropping in a different value to show. So what you'll want is Similar to what we've done with the other conditional statements is if someone selects pipeline, so if dd category dot selected dot value, which is this field here, if that has a value of pipeline, then make the value in category ID 01 pipeline text. Same for verbal started, not started. And if nothing's selected, then leave it blank. But we've got that field as a mandatory field here, and then that will work. So you have to select a value there, so that we should never get to this last step. That's fine. And then for that guy there, go back to properties and then toggle off the visible. Okay, so just click on the slider there, it'll disappear. But then that field's going to then submit now with a value, whatever is based on category ID. So if I do it again, so let's play this and go aardvark2. This one's 22. Make sure you've got everything selected. And then we'll make a pipeline as well. Create that. Things will disappear, and then aardvark2, because I spelled it differently, is showing second. So there you go, that's how we do that. So the issue there was we had a field that I wasn't capturing, and I want to capture that. Stand-up's coming up, I'll have to jump on that in a second. But that's the action there. So what we've done today is we've learned how to create a pop-up with a form with conditional functionality on the button. Take it to the next step, put a little asterisk next to the fields that need to have mandatory, or have other placeholder helper text. In this pop-up, we've learned how to group everything together and wrap that under the same visibility status of the context variable, so we can show and hide a button as we want. The next tutorial will cover how to update these items, and once I make a change to make that $110, how I can click that button and that will update just that row in the data source and refresh things. But that's going to be coming along in session 4. Cheers guys, I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you've got any questions. Cheers.